You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Reynolds. I'm the owner of Summit Properties Northwest, Reynolds & Kline Appraisal, and most importantly, your host of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. We got another company, a big company, moving out of Cali. Sorry, people in California. Love you guys as listeners and viewers. You guys got a lot going on. I'm recording this on a Monday, and last night, you guys, at midnight, you guys went into yet another phased lockdown. Are you guys going to be able to do anything this holiday season? Probably not, because I think your lockdown is tied to your percentage of capacity in ICU in the hospital, something like that. Man, you guys are having a tough time. But another big company is moving out of California, and guess where they're moving? Right here to Seattle. And when we say Seattle, we kind of mean one of the suburbs of Seattle. Let's jump into it. This is an article from GeekWire. Tech CEO moves $9 billion cybersecurity company's headquarters to Seattle area, says San Francisco. It is not the city it was. Now, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, neither is Seattle. Seattle's just a dump. I wouldn't even walk on the sidewalks there. And that's not fair. I mean, the stuff that we're talking about is typically just in downtown. It's not in the residential areas, except for maybe a little, some areas of CHOP. But it's pretty contained, as it is with most cities. The craziness and the nut jobs that are doing all the protesting, they're in very small areas other than downtown Seattle. And this company saying, their tech CEO saying it's not the city it was. Well, neither is Seattle. Neither is Seattle, but our suburbs, we still got a lot going on. That's what we're going to get into today. So let's find out what the company is, where they're going. Orion Hindawi. Am I just butchering that now? I'm probably. Orion Hindawi. Orion, sorry, can't pronounce your last name very well, was born in the San Francisco Bay Area and helped build two successful companies there. But the 40-year-old co-founder and CEO of Tanium, a fast-growing cybersecurity company valued at more than $9 billion, is done with his hometown. Really done. Earlier this year, Hindawi packed his bags and moved with his family to Seattle's Laurelhurst neighborhood along the shores of Lake Washington. So Laurelhurst is located very close to the University of Washington. It is to the northeast of downtown Seattle. I should have looked this up beforehand because otherwise I'm just going to look like an idiot and not know my geography. I am going to say it is 4.5 miles northeast of downtown Seattle. How's that for just a wild-ass guess? A scientific wild guess. So moving to Laurelhurst. Laurelhurst is a very established, old-school Seattle money neighborhood with it's on the shores of Lake Washington. Pretty cool neighborhood, but very expensive. His father, David, a successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur who founded Tanium with Orion in 2007, joined him in Laurelhurst. So, father and son moving to Laurelhurst. And his sister, an emergency room doctor, bailed on the Bay Area for Bellevue, Washington, where I'm bringing you this podcast from. Now, Hindawi is bringing I want to say titanium instead of Tanium. Now, Hindawi is bringing the Tanium headquarters along with him. So they already live here. The privately held Andreessen Horowitz-backed company, which topped $430 million in revenue last year, just established its headquarters on the waterfront in Kirkland, a short drive across the Evergreen Point floating bridge from Seattle. So Kirkland, if you've been following the podcast, Kirkland is the city to the north of Bellevue. It is also the city that had the large outbreak here in North America of the coronavirus at the Life Center Nursing Home and Recovery Center, I think is what it was in Kirkland. But that's where the first cases of the Rona came out, and we got a lot of attention. That was not good attention, but, starting point for the Rona here in Washington. We're famous. Tanium is starting small in the Seattle area. Last week, the company inked a lease for just under 7,000 square feet of office space on the 5th floor of the 3,000 Caroline Point building. So when I was super young and trying to get my real estate appraisal career going, I delivered some of my appraisals to the 3,000 building of Caroline Point. So I know exactly where this is. This is a waterfront office community that looks out to the Olympic Mountains to the west and Lake Washington. It's basically on Lake Washington, really big lake. It's pretty cool. very expensive office space. 7,000 square feet of office space. I don't even know how much that'd be. A lot. Very expensive. Not where I would have my offices, but I'm also cheap with office space. I just don't see it as a big, look at me, I'm really fancy. I like the cheap stuff because you can kind of hunker down and fly under the radar, and you don't have to pretend like you're somebody who you aren't. However, Hindawi tells GeekWire that he expects to expand pretty materially in the region, noting that he wouldn't be surprised if the company occupied as much as 50,000 square feet in the next couple of years. Hindawi considered other locations including Denver, Austin, and Nashville. Those are some cities that routinely come up as other areas of, if you don't like it in Cali, let's take a look at this. Denver, Austin, and Nashville. But Washington State struck a chord with its diverse economic base, natural beauty, proximity to the Bay Area. It's a pretty quick flight to San Francisco from here. Moderate political environment, moderate. Moderate. No. Oh, but one thing. Mayor Jenny Durkan of Seattle, she's going to do a press release very shortly, today, tomorrow, indicating she will not run for re-election in 2021. So we won't have Mayor Jenny Durkan to ride into the ground anymore. We can't just complain about every decision she makes. So sadly, Mayor Jenny Durkan will be moving on. Most people are not sad about that. They are probably going to throw a party. Nobody liked her. She tried to please everybody. I was talking with Nikki, video guy here. Nobody liked her, just kind of like Ted Wheeler down in Portland. Tried to please everybody and pleased nobody in the process. Tough times. But she's out. She's like, plus I think she's in a demographic where maybe she's going to retire. And people do have that option. They don't have to keep going back and taking just a beat down for their political views. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of people complaining that Mayor Jenny Durkan's not going to run again. So a moderate political environment and robust enterprise software talent mix. So those are things that this guy's looking at. And the robust enterprise software talent mix, it's what a lot of people come to the Seattle area for, so they can poach other employees. Let's be honest. Hey, got some pretty good talent there. Might take a look myself. Do you really need that employee? Pretty good employee. Like to have that employee. That's what you've got going on in the whole tech environment, right? Everybody knows it. It's not that big of a deal. Employees, if you look at their resume, they're like, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, all within 3 years. Interesting, but not unusual. I like the community feeling here, says Hindawi, noting that his next door neighbor is a college professor. Random, but I get it. In the Bay Area, with nearly everyone connected to tech, that would never happen, he said. It's nice to have a little variety, he added. Where do the professors live then? Where are the professors? No professors there? I think there are. Where are they living? Don't know. Bailing on the Bay Area. Hindawi also realized that the mythology around Silicon Valley no longer resonated with him. He cited the expense of operating there and some asymmetries in the way that the Bay Area works that just really don't work that well for us, he said. He added, San Francisco is not the city it was 20 years ago. Neither is Seattle. So you just got to be kind of careful there. But here's the big difference, is that you move to Seattle, and I put Seattle in air quotes there for everybody on the True podcast. When people refer to Seattle, they're not usually referring to actual Seattle proper. They're referring to one of our many suburbs. And those areas are pretty nice. They're pretty expensive, and they've kind of got more values that align with the big tech company. Instead of Seattle proper, which does the Amazon tax and basically just says, big business, we are here to tax you. We will take your revenue. Otherwise, we won't support you at all. Specifically, Starbucks. We don't like Starbucks here. Even though they're from here, we want to just, hammer on Starbucks stores. That's the store that always gets ripped apart, gets a bunch of graffiti and a bunch of destruction when the peaceful protesters are doing their peaceful protesting. So tough. These are tough words from someone who has never lived outside of the Bay Area. And he dropped out of the University of California, Berkeley as a freshman in 1998 to help his dad grow enterprise security company BigFix, which was acquired by IBM in 2010. But Hindawi says the Bay Area changed, and he now describes California as having a real governance issue. All right, let's pause for a second. How much of this is based on the Californian income tax? I bet you anything it is a ton. Because yes, this is a good place to have a tech company, obviously. We've got all the major tech companies here. They've got a presence. They've got some kind of headquarters here. But it's about the lifestyle. Yeah, that's in there too. Is it about the weather? No, because you don't move from San Francisco to Seattle because there's more sunshine in Seattle. Not happening. We're in the midst of our first third of our crappy weather season. So we haven't had the really bad weather yet where it rains and is cold every day for like 60 days straight. Haven't had that yet, but it's coming. Winter in Seattle, it's a little gruesome. But no, we're looking at economic decisions being made here, and mainly because California has that state income tax, and it's just so expensive to live there. And guess what? You're not getting the bang for your buck that you once were in California. And I've had many, and I'm not trying to bag on California by any means. It's a beautiful state. It's also got areas that, just like Seattle, are hammered on. Venice Beach, which used to be just super cool, overrun with homelessness. And, there's that in a lot of different areas. But companies with high-paying employees, they're getting the heck out of Cali, aren't they? They are moving elsewhere. So pressed on his choice to leave his hometown rather than sticking around to help it, Hindawi counters, blind support for a place that makes you unhappy? That doesn't actually seem like a great decision to me. Probably not. And what started as a personal move, sparked in part by the pandemic, quickly morphed into a prudent business decision. The company already employed executives in the Seattle area, including Chief Marketing Officer Chris Pick, Vice President of Product Marketing Gautam Mendaharu, and Vice President of Global Brand and Communications Rachel Peppel. So after moving to Seattle in June and implementing a work-from-anywhere policy, Hindawi decided it was best to formalize the headquarters relocation. So I find it very interesting that if you can work from anywhere from this company, but they are moving their headquarters to a very expensive city and a very expensive city for their employees to live. But I guess if you live anywhere, you're like, all right, I'll pick one of these suburban locations outside of Kirkland, Washington, and I'll live there and I'll drive into Kirkland every now and then because we've got a work from anywhere policy. But to me, it's like, okay, if you're really going to make these decisions, aren't you going to go somewhere cheaper? And, like the Austin option here? No, people are still, and it actually kind of surprises me when I see these things because Seattle's got such a bad rap lately for just all of it, all the nonsense going on that made, $9 billion company still choosing to move here. So we've got enough factors here in the Seattle area that are offsetting a bunch of our political leadership lunacy. The center of gravity had shifted from the Bay Area up to Seattle, he said. So it was kind of a recognition of something that had already happened. Prior to the move, Hindawi consulted with technology leaders in the Seattle area and weighed locations on both sides of Lake Washington before settling on Carillon Point. He's connected with the Seattle tech luminaries like Smartsheet CEO Mark Mader and Madrona Venture Group's Matt McClellan. I'm just going to go with Matt because I can't pronounce his last name. He also chatted with Governor Jay Inslee, walking away impressed with what he had described as more competent and balanced political leadership than what he encountered in California. That says a lot, doesn't it? Right there. I'm not going to say anything more. No incentives were provided as part of Tanium's headquarters move, and Hindawi said he didn't ask for any. That's what you see on a lot of these deals, is that other cities, if you're a big company, you can go to, and all right, what kind of break are you going to cut me? You going to cut me a good one? Am I going to get some tax benefits? You going to give me some kind of incentive to come here? What do I get? Seattle, people are like, all right, yeah, bring your crew here, but we're going to tax you. We're not going to give you a tax break, but we're going to tax you more. That's what Seattle proper would say. But for all the suburban areas of Seattle, especially here on the east side, we're like, yep, you're our guy. Come on down. Love to have you. We'll set you up. It's not going to be cheap. But you're a $9 billion company. You can afford it. Let's go. That's kind of what the suburbs of Seattle are doing. A mass exodus. That's the next section here. The company is retaining, and speaking of a mass exodus, also just saw the story over the weekend here. Hewlett and Packard leaving California. When you think of early tech innovation, HP, I associate HP with printers because I love their printers. Hewlett and Packard and Canon, I've had so many of their printers. But Hewlett and Packard, I mean, they are synonymous, right, with early technology, moving out of Cali. Where are they going? That's probably my next podcast here, right? Yep. So, bunch of companies moving out. So much of it has to do with that with cost of living and state income tax, and things just kind of going sideways there. A mass exodus. The company is retaining its high-rise office space on the waterfront in Emeryville, California, for at least now. However, probably because he's locked into a really big lease and nobody wants to take over that space. Reading between the lines here, but that's what we do here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. However, Hindawi said it's likely they will sublet a portion of the 65,000 square foot space. All right, so they do have a long-term lease, right? Because we got to do a little subletting. And you can always sublet if you got a long lease. Maybe it's got a 5-year lease, something like that. I don't know. Tanium implemented a work-from-anywhere policy earlier this year, including the ability for employees to retain their pay no matter the geography they chose. How about these companies that are saying, all right, but if you're not living in an expensive area, we're going to pay you less because it's not based on the work that you're doing for us. It's based on your cost of living, and we're just trying to cheat you out of a few nickels. That's how I kind of feel like that goes, right? Because if somebody's doing a job for you, I don't really care where you live. If you're working online and you're getting the job done for me, my only care is that you're okay enough to do your job and be a decent human being. But bottom line is, and let's be brutally honest, can you get the work done from wherever you are? If you can, 2 thumbs up. I don't care where it is that you do it, just that you get it done. That's kind of the bottom line in an employee-employer relationship. Obviously, you want people's careers to flourish. You want them to become better at their jobs. You want them to, all that good stuff. You want that. The bottom line is are you getting the job done? Because if you're not, then we got an issue. I'm probably going to let you go, or we need to figure out how you can do it better. But if you are getting the job done, I'm not going to pay you less because your rent is half what it used to be. Not doing that. It's like, all right, this is what we pay for this job. This is what we're doing. So that sparked what Hindawi called a mass exodus from the Bay Area. Since June, 99 Tanium employees have left the Bay Area, or roughly 20% of its California workforce, choosing new locations such as Denver, St. Louis, and Austin. There's the usual suspects, right? We applaud that because they tend to be, and we've actually looked at this, a lot happier, he said. The company now employs 167 people in the Bay Area and 1,500 people worldwide. And soon to have a presence, they got 7,000 square feet now. So what is that? 100 people, something like that. I don't know. It's not a huge number. Is it 50 people? Depends. I guess it depends on how you're socially distancing, how you're spreading out. But it's a handful of people. The fleeing of the Bay Area is playing out beyond Tanium, with tech executives like Dropbox CEO Drew Houston and Splunk CEO Douglas Merritt also departing. I did a podcast on the Dropbox. I'm sure you can find it there somewhere. And they're just basically, yep, we're out. We got to go. A company like Dropbox, where I laugh at Dropbox because the whole thing about Dropbox is you can have the information anywhere on your phone, anywhere on your computer, on your iPad, anywhere, and it all syncs the same. And yet the company's out of a specific location, and they're out of California, and they're leaving. They're picking up and moving. Thousands of Silicon Valley employees are following suit, recreating their lives during the pandemic. Residential vacancy rates have more than doubled in San Francisco since last year, according to San Francisco Chronicle. An August report from Zillow described a San Francisco exodus with rents. Done lots of stories on that. Yep, they're leaving. And home prices following and housing inventory rising, a trend not seen in Seattle. In fact, a recent report by KUOW, it's one of our local radio stations, found that Seattle continues to attract newcomers at a rapid clip, with nearly a quarter of new residents tracked by United Van Lines hailing from Cali. Did a podcast on the fact that For every 2 people that leave Seattle, 3 come in. So we have net in migration here in Seattle. That's just what's going on. So we talk a lot about, what a crappy city Seattle has become. Well, that's true for some very small geographic areas, mainly downtown, some of Capitol Hill, areas like that, but not on the east side of Seattle proper. That's not what's going on. We got a lot of people coming to the area, and it's basically job related and quality of life related. So the highlights you see from the news, bottom line here, the highlights you see don't reflect all of Seattle. So there's this kind of duality going on, what's going on in Seattle and then what's going on in the rest of the area. And the two things are wildly different. Okay, so here's the big kicker, a strong pool of engineering talent. This is what I talk about a lot here in Seattle. That's what we've got. Strong labor pool, right, of the right kind of jobs. And you can only get that in a few areas. And if you've got enough companies in the area, well, and if you're a smaller company, you can kind of cherry pick if you can compete with salaries and perks and all that stuff. With the Tanium headquarters shifting to the Seattle area, Hindawi anticipates a few more members of its team will pick the Pacific Northwest, but he's quick to note that the success of a remote-first company will be judged on whether employees can find success no matter the location they choose. And that's something that I question. If you're living somewhere else and you're not coming into headquarters all the time, you lose that creative synergy. You lose that ability to have those just impromptu meetings, conversations with people that you're working with, and it's just not the same as Zoom. Because Zoom, you've got, I need to log in at 2:55 for my 3 o'clock Zoom meeting. That just takes the fun out of it, right? Instead of just happen to run by somebody, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about we do this on this, this, and this? Have that quick, spontaneous conversation. That's what I think we lose out by all this remote stuff. But we'll just have to see, can we come up with tools that replicate that? I don't know, but here we are, pandemic and all, it's what we're doing. We actually have to run a company where things like promotions and recognition are based on productivity and commitment, not on proximity. And that's tough, he said. So I'm okay with people not choosing Seattle. Some people won't like the rain. Some people will want to be closer to their family. Some people want a lower cost of living, and that's great. I'm actually agnostic to that. It's an interesting word, agnostic. Agnostic to that. And so my answer would be, I don't know if Seattle is perfect for everybody at Tanium. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. And that's okay, because I'm not going to force people to move here either. He just likes it here, loves it. Still, Hindawi sees an opportunity to mine for engineering talent in Seattle, a region that he says is unrivaled when it comes to enterprise software expertise. I actually don't think there's any stronger proof of engineering talent globally than there is here, he said. So yeah, absolutely. I have to expect that we're going to be hiring a good number of engineers and relatively quickly. So yet another tech company coming in. Of course, maintaining a strong corporate culture is no easy task with employees dispersed around the globe. And Tanium has encountered pushback to its culture in the past. In 2017, Bloomberg News article titled, "Tanium's Family Empire is in Crisis." Hindawi faced intense criticism about executive departures, unwanted firings tied to employees' stock option holdings, and perhaps most damning, a culture in which the CEO denigrated employees. I'd like to actually see what those stories were, because most of the time when I read this in the corporate level, it's like, all right, so some employee got out of line. CEO had to kind of put them back in line, because if you have thousands of employees, guess what? One goes sideways, you kind of need to reel them in. I don't know if that's the case here, but that's what I see oftentimes. In a written response to the Bloomberg story, Hindawi admitted that he could have hard-edged and that his intense drive to protect and serve customers resulted in a highly demanding culture that at times created a stressful environment. You mean like any major business, especially at the top? Stressful. That's why you get paid a lot. That's why CEOs get paid so much money. They take on stress that nobody else is willing to take on. Hindawi said the move to Seattle has nothing to do with escaping the blistering portrayal in the Bloomberg piece. Since the publication, all right, so I'm not going to keep going into that. And talk a little bit about their growth pattern and what they want to do. So here's the end. If you get a chance to get on a boat and sit in Lake Washington and look around, he said, I think there really are very few places that are more beautiful. In summer, let's be clear here, in summer and in the fall, early fall, and in early spring, but not during the winter, which is about 9 months out of the year. So another company moving to the greater Seattle area. It's interesting because everybody is always like, well, Seattle's going down the crapper. They're all done. They're not coming back. They're never going to recover from this. That's the narrative that's out there, and especially on YouTube. Get a lot of really negative comments to Seattle because people are looking in going, what a bunch of freaks there in Seattle. Look at the freak show. Look at their political leadership. Just crazy. And then you've got stories like this where on the business level, you're like, wow, this is really happening. This is really what's going on. So on that note, I'm pretty close to the end of this podcast, but I wanted to read you one email. Something that somebody sent in to me that I thought was like, or no, it was a comment on YouTube. And YouTube has some of the worst trolls of any of the social media. I think YouTube hands down is by far the worst. Here's a comment that I thought was funny. Not funny, but it is kind of funny because it's so far out there. All right, and the title of the video that this person is commenting on is Tenants Resort to Pay Rent. Let me start over. Sorry, can't read. Tenants resort to pay rent with credit cards as eviction surge looms. And on the thumbnail, I've got a hand with a credit card. Maybe you've seen this one. So that's what the video was. And this individual is saying, well, that's because landlords should all be in prison. Prison. Wow. Strong words, YouTube viewer. If you own rental property, you are the worst kind of human scum, neck and neck with child molesters. That's not good. You are a parasite on humanity. So people who own real estate and rent it out to others are a parasite on humanity. That's where we're going, I guess. Here's the part that I thought was interesting. Real estate agents are the next step above you, but they still deserve life in prison. All right. I'm just going to let you guys sit with that one because those comments are like, oh, okay. You do realize that you are watching the Seattle Real Estate podcast and that I am a licensed managing broker. Guess we don't care. We're just making comments. So got to take the good with the bad, right? Especially when you're doing a podcast and you're kind of taking some hits from all sides, but that gets offset with a lot of really nice comments and a lot of support out there. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, even though I'm apparently supposed to be, I'm a parasite on humanity and I deserve life in prison. That's what we're doing. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, I'm Sean Reynolds from Summit Properties Northwest, Reynolds and Kline Appraisal. I will see you guys on the next one. Again, thanks for being here. Catch up soon. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.